There is a sun that gives no warmth, a sun that hangs, still, heavy, and hollow, like an omen carved into the sky. It absorbs meaning and hope, and those who see it awaken. The ancients feared it, the mystics named it, and the moment you face it, everything begins to unravel, starting with you. If you too hang heavy and hollow, check out Pantheon Apparel, our clothing brand inspired by myths, legends, and folklore. We've shipped worldwide and are rated excellent on Trustpilot. Link in the description. The black sun is a paradox, a sun that gives no light, a source of energy that brings no life. Across centuries, it has appeared in visions, in manuscripts, in myth, a dark sphere hovering where brilliance should be. It's been called a symbol of death, of hidden knowledge, of rebirth through ruin. But no single definition holds it. The black sun resists meaning, even as it pulls people toward it. Some see it as a forgotten celestial body, a second sun lost behind the veil, waiting to return. Others say it isn't in the sky at all, but in the soul, a force that rises when the self begins to collapse. It is a symbol that survives because it disturbs. Unlike the golden sun that governs a day and order, the black sun belongs to night, to inversion, to things hidden beneath the surface of the world. It is both ancient and modern, beautiful and terrifying, a beacon for seekers and a warning to those who look too long. To understand the black sun, we have to follow where it leads, through rotting tombs, through the underworld, through eclipses of the spirit. And it begins, always, in the dark. In alchemy, transformation begins with ash, with disintegration. The first stage was known as the black phase, and it was guided by a symbol that defies logic, the black sun. In alchemical texts and illustrations, the black sun appears at the moment of collapse. Alchemists believed nothing could be made pure unless it first passed through corruption. They called this stage putrefaction, the rotting, the blackening, the breaking down of all form, and when this began, the black sun rose. It was a spiritual trial. The alchemist was a seeker. The work they performed in the laboratory was a mirror of the soul. To transmute base matter into gold, they first had to dissolve the illusions within themselves. Pride, fear, false identity, all of it had to be stripped away. The black sun symbolized this inner annihilation. It burned with stillness, forcing the seeker to confront their own shadow. In illuminated manuscripts like the Rosarium Philosophorum, the black sun is shown hanging above tombs, forests of decay, or the corpse of the alchemist himself, a haunting reminder that spiritual progress demands symbolic death. You could not ascend until you descended, and could not find the light until you had survived the dark. The black phase was terrifying by design. It brought confusion, disorientation, despair. But the alchemists believed that darkness had purpose. The black sun marked the threshold, the crossing into a deeper reality, one stripped of illusion. It was the gateway to rebirth, and no one passed through it unchanged. To look upon the black sun was to know your old self was already gone. All that remained was the work, because it was dissolution in the service of something greater, and only through the black phase could anything true emerge. So the alchemist waited beneath the black sun, surrounded by rot, by silence, by shadow, preparing for what came next. But the black sun isn't confined to alchemy. It haunted the myths of ancient civilizations, an event, a moment when the true sun faltered, when light turned against the world and darkness ruled. In Egyptian mythology, the sun god Ra is believed to die each day. At sunset, he entered the underworld, the Duat, and boarded his solar bark for a perilous journey through the realm of the dead. Ra disappeared into another plane of existence, where he faced the monstrous serpent Apophis, who sought to devour him and halt the sun's return. During these hours, the visible sun was gone, But in the duat, a different sun moved through a landscape of silence and shadow, a sun that had shone for the dead. This was the black sun, the sun inverted, isolated, and at war with chaos. In Aztec cosmology, the universe was governed by successive suns, each an age of the world with its own fate. We live under the fifth sun, but the fourth sun, known as Nahui-Atl, was ruled by water and ended in catastrophic floods. Some interpretations link this era to a hidden or dark sun, one that passed through the underworld. In certain Aztec myths, the sun must descend into Mictlan, the land of the dead, before it can rise again, the same cycle of death and rebirth. The sun here represents both a failed age and a hidden force beneath the surface of time, a sun that has ruled before and may return. In Norse mythology, the sun is personified as the goddess Sol, and her fate is already sealed. From the moment of creation, she is pursued by Skoll, a monstrous wolf who will devour her at Ragnarok, the end of all things. When that happens, the world is thrown into darkness and the sky is set ablaze. This is the extinction of light as a principle, a reversal of order, and in the aftermath, a new sun will be born, the daughter of Sol, radiant and untouched by the world that came before. But to reach that new light, the old sun must die. The black sun, once again, sits in the space between worlds, a sun that ends rather than begins. These myths are not describing eclipses, they are describing cosmic failures, moments when the laws of light are shattered. The sun, that symbol of life, growth and truth, becomes silent, corrupted, or hunted. And what takes its place is a force beyond comprehension, a living darkness, a watcher in the void. Across cultures, this pattern repeats: a dying sun, a hidden sun, a devoured sun, and each time what emerges is transformation. In these ancient narratives, the black sun doesn't end the story. It opens the next chapter, a world undone, waiting to be remade. The black sun didn't die with myths. It was reborn within the writings of occult philosophy. No longer tied to the sky or the underworld, it was reimagined as a force that existed within. It became a symbol not oft sensed, something that calls from the edge of consciousness, veiled, unnameable, magnetic. To occult seekers, it represented a hidden current in the universe, truth revealing in its darkness. It was the sun of those who did not fear the void. As we know, the alchemists had already laid the groundwork. In texts like the Rosarium Philosophorum, the black sun was a threshold, a marker of the soul's descent into chaos and the eventual return. But later esoteric thinkers saw something more, a gate to illumination that could not be reached by light. The black sun came to represent access to hidden knowledge through collapse. It offered vision through destruction, gnosis through disintegration. It was the fireless clarity that comes when everything false has fallen away. In the Hermetic Kabbalah, the soul's journey is mapped along the tree of life, 10 spheres or sephirot, each representing stages of divine emanation. But between the higher realms and the human self lies the abyss, a chasm that cannot be crossed by intellect or will alone. The abyss represents the shattering of ego, the death of the self before union with the infinite. Some occult systems began to associate the black sun with this passage. It became the unlit torch that guides the initiate through the void, a paradoxical light that reveals by erasing. To enter this darkness was to be remade, if one could endure it. In Theosophy and the post-Enlightenment occult revival, the black sun underwent another transformation. Esoteric thinkers like Helena Blavatsky and Rudolf Steiner spoke of a hidden central sun, the true source of spiritual energy, invisible to the physical eye but radiant within the soul. This unseen sun was said to govern cycles of karma, cosmic memory, and planetary evolution. Though they didn't always call it the black sun, later occultists would take this concept and graft it into the symbol. The black sun became the sun behind the sun, the origin point of all hidden forces, a primal source older than the gods of light, unknowable and, in that unknowability, terrifying. In Saturnian mysticism, the black sun took on an even more esoteric weight. Saturn, the planet of endings, discipline and restriction, was venerated as the gatekeeper of transformation. Certain magical orders, such as the Fraternitas Saturni, regarded Saturn as a spiritual boundary, the edge between the known world and the abyss beyond. Here the Black Sun emerged as a final ordeal, a crucible of the self. To pass through it was to be broken down completely, stripped of all masks and illusions. What emerged on the other side wasn't guaranteed. This was a test of will, of endurance, of essence, and many, it was said, would not return. In some modern systems, especially those influenced by chaos magic and left-hand path traditions, the Black Sun became a symbol of qliphothic descent, a journey into the inverted tree of life. The qliphoth aren't divine emanations, but their opposites, realms of inversion, entropy and raw potential. They are broken vessels of creation, the shadow that follows light. Within this framework, the Black Sun stands at the edge of reason, a lure. It calls those who reject imposed order, those who believe that divinity is not given, but taken. It is the icon of those who descend to rise. In all these systems, one message persists. The Black Sun is not for the faint-hearted, but the mark of the seeker who is willing to sacrifice identity for truth, form for freedom. It offers only a path through shadow, silence, and dissolution. Eventually, that path led somewhere darker. The symbol was taken, twisted, weaponized. But that chapter belongs to another kind of darkness, and we will reach it soon. Carl Gustav Jung was a Swiss psychiatrist and one of the founding figures of modern depth psychology. He saw psyche as a living ecosystem of symbols, myths, and unconscious forces. He believed that the stories of gods and monsters were reflections of the human soul, and within that soul he recognized something ancient and dangerous, the same Black Sun that had haunted alchemists and mystics for centuries. Jung first encountered the image in his study of alchemy, which he saw as a metaphor for psychological transformation. The stages of the alchemical process were to Jung a mirror of the soul's journey toward integration. The black phase was the breaking down of the false self, the collapse of identity, order and meaning. In this darkness, Jung placed the Black Sun, a psychic symbol of extreme inner crisis, of depression, loss or ego death, a sun that shone with weight. He believed the mind had to undergo periods of descent, painful, destabilizing periods where the conscious self was overwhelmed by the unconscious. Those were moments when life lost its structure, when familiar meanings dissolved, and when individuals felt like they were falling into a void. In Jung's terms, it was breakthrough in disguise. And at the center of this inner collapse was the shadow, the part of the psyche that contains everything we reject or repress: anger, shame, grief, fear, even potential. To confront the shadow was to confront the self without illusions. He called this process shadow work, and the Black Sun was its guiding symbol, and it demanded truth. The Black Sun in this framework is the moment when the mask falls away, when the old identity built from trauma, expectation, and denial begins to decay. Jung described it as a kind of psychic putrefaction, the soul confronting its own darkness as a necessary rite of passage. But this descent is not without risk. He warned that if a person resists this process, if they cling too tightly to the false self, they can become trapped. What was meant to transform can instead consume. Depression, spiritual stagnation, even psychosis can emerge when the Black Sun rises and the self refuses to let go. Yet for those who push through, something changes. The ego softens. The unconscious is no longer feared, but understood. Out of the Black Sun, a new sense of self can emerge. The alchemists would call this move from black to white. Jung called it individuation, the process of becoming whole. So the Black Sun drains, silences. It reduces self to ash. But in that stillness, transformation becomes possible. It marks the descent into ourselves, the beginning of something real, something that can't be taught, only faced. At the heart of Wewelsburg Castle in Germany, beneath the marble floors of a ceremonial hall, lies a symbol carved in stone. A 12-spoked black sunwheel, set into the ground like a seal. It radiates outward in silence, heavy with intention. Today it is known as the Black Sun, but that name came later. At the time of its creation, no one called it that aloud. The castle itself was redesigned under the orders of Heinrich Himmler, the head of the SS, who envisioned it as the spiritual centre of the new order. Wewelsburg was to be a temple, a place where ancient Germanic myth, nationalist ideology and esoteric ambition could be fused into one. The sunwheel mosaic, embedded in the North Tower, was never officially explained. Its meaning remains unrecorded, but its placement, symmetry and symbolism were deliberate. The design may have drawn from older motifs, sunwheels found in Indo-European artifacts, Norse cosmology, even Merovingian ornamentation. But whatever its source, it stood for something unseen, a centre of power, a source of order, a hidden sun beneath the skin of the world. After the war, the symbol was left behind, abandoned by the SS, ignored by historians, and left to gather dust in the ruins of a failed empire. But in the decades that followed it was reclaimed. Occult groups, esoteric writers, and conspiracy theorists began referring to it as the Black Sun, a secret symbol of hidden power, forbidden knowledge, of ancient force waiting to return. And from there it spread. Some saw it as a representation of the inner sun from Hermeticism or Theosophy, while others tied it to cosmic cycles of Saturnian initiation, to the return of a dark age. But not all who used it sought wisdom. The symbol was gradually adopted by the far-right movements, neo-Nazi leaders, and groups looking to cloak ideology in the language of myth. What began as a mystical concept of death and transformation was warped into a symbol of supremacy and control. Today, the Black Sun appears in extremist propaganda, online conspiracies and cryptic iconography. It still shows up in esoteric circles too, used by those who claim to seek inner truth, but its meaning is no longer clear. It has been fragmented, repurposed, and weaponized. The Black Sun is no longer seen as a personal symbol, but described as a source of hidden power, a cosmic mechanism buried beneath the visible world, understood only by those who operate beneath the surface of the world. A secret sun said to illuminate the architecture of control. But there are those who believe powerful individuals, ancient priesthoods, or secret societies have long worked to harness this force for what it offers: knowledge beyond moral law, energy beyond life, a means of reshaping reality through collapse. It becomes a sigil for those who don't fear the end of worlds, because they intend to survive them. In these interpretations, the Black Sun aligns with the principle of Saturn: restriction, time, death, and initiation. Elites are thought to model their systems on this. Order is broken and restructured again and again, each time in their favour. The Black Sun becomes the symbol of that process, the power to pull things apart and rebuild. Its influence is said to appear in ritual architecture, global iconography, and hidden patterns embedded in state and corporate power. Most of this lives in shadows, speculation, and syncretic myth, but that is how symbols survive, and the Black Sun resonates because it speaks to something beneath reason, a truth that cannot be proven, only felt. The Black Sun waits. Beneath memory, history, beneath the world we pretend is whole. And it shines behind closed eyes, behind locked doors, behind every moment we feel something breaking. You don't escape it, you don't reason with it. You enter, and something else comes out. The Black Sun never dies. It burns in silence, feeding on the parts of us we tried to bury. And if you ever feel it staring back, it's because you're already inside.